sad thing, mostly happy right now, mostly happy for most people. We had a good week. I remember I was thinking over the summer what we got to do, and one of the things that we got to do, we went to, of course, go to Gatlinburg all the time. Okay, you hear that. So we went to Pigeon Forge, and we went to this place called the Titanic. I think it's the Titanic Museum or something, okay? So we somehow talked Faith, she's 8 years old, to go into this Titanic thing. But what Faith thought it was a ride, okay? So let me tell y'all real quick, it's not a ride, okay? Has everybody got me? So if you're thinking, oh, we're going to go ride the Titanic, you're not going to ride the Titanic. It's the story of the Titanic and what happened. And, you know, we read about it. We've seen movies about it. And so we went in there. It's a little bit expensive, just throwing that out to you. But we had to do something with Faith that day. You ever had one of those days? Got to do something. So it's a little expensive, but we went in there, and everybody's dressed up like they're on the Titanic. And what happened was they gave us these cards. And everybody got a card. Faith got a card. Lynn and I got a card. And it was the people that were actually on the Titanic. And what happened, we got to be that person that's going to be on the Titanic, where we're going to stay, where we're going to live, for, you know, where all that, third class, second class, first class. And you could find out where you were staying by, I said mash the first service, but it's press, I've been informed. It is press a button, and it will light that thing up, and you can see where you're going to stay. So they had third class, second class. I ended up in third class. As the story progresses, you'll know that's probably not a good place to be. And so third class, second class, and I forgot where everybody else was. So everybody had a card. Now, Faye's still thinking it's a ride. And so she's pressing all the buttons, and we're going through, and the story starts to unfold. And, you know, it starts to come alive for you. You start realizing this really happened, and this wasn't good. Okay, of all the things that, you know, we read about, we see, but you were actually seeing things that were on the Titanic, and you were actually looking at the faces of the people that were on there, and you're actually one of those people now. So we go through, and we're doing all the stuff. It's incredible how they built it, the whole thing. And we get to the helm. I think it's the helm. I'm going to say that. Where you drive the ship. Is that close enough? Okay. That's how I would say it. And so they told us how they try to keep everything on course, and the magnetic stuff they use. You know, it's 1912 or something like that. It's way back there, so it's not like today. And they had all the stuff they used to check the stars. And you could look out from the helm, and they had it set up exactly what it looked like that night, with the stars, the water being calm, you know, all this stuff. There was no way to see icebergs. There was no way the moon was not, it was a new moon. You couldn't see anything. So we're looking around, Faith trying to drive the ship, you know, and all that. And so then we go out into this one area, and it's 50 degrees out in this one room, and they've got this big old iceberg in the room. Now they've set it up where you could touch it. It feels like a real iceberg. Okay, it's cold and the whole deal. So it started like coming alive for us. So we started playing with the iceberg, Faith like that. And then they had this water that was 28 degrees. And what happened was they wanted you to feel what the water felt like the night those people went in the water. So we tried to hold our hand in there for 10 seconds at 28 degrees. It's almost impossible. I mean, for an hour later, your hand was still cold. And all of a sudden, this ship, this thing that we saw on TV and we heard about and read about, it started to come alive for us. I mean, this is what really happened to these people. These things, and then you put your hand, you can imagine, there's no way. I mean, I think it was 30 to 40 minutes and you were gone. There was no way you could make it. So we're walking through, and then they have another place where you could go up and you could climb the rails. It had at different tilts where the ship started going down, and you could climb the rails. Now, Faith made a little game out of that. She would climb the rail, and she'd slide down. And she would do it. She'd look at me, Mama, and she just kept going. But in reality, that night, it wasn't fun and games at all. And she was just playing, and we got in a lifeboat. They had lifeboats. You could hear the stories of the people that were in the lifeboat, that they could tell what happened and what was going on. So we went through all of that, and then we got to the end. Now, here's the part that'll make you wake up and think about what's happened. You get to go find out if you made it. So we go to this board, and I'm looking around. I'm third class, and I look up there, and there is a mountain of names in third class that did not make it. So I go through, and Faith stand there, and Lynn stand there, and we look at, and I say, uh-oh, I didn't make it. So I'm gone. So Lynn looks around. Lynn finds her name. Lynn didn't make it. Then we get faith. We bring faith in there, and faith looked around, and faith made it. But faith said something real interesting. She said, now what do I do? She's an orphan. See, this was the reality. This happened. There were so many children that were left orphans. You know, and it's like, what do I do now? And so the whole thought was, basically, we were all the same. When it comes to what's happening with us, when it comes to life, we were all orphans at one time, and we had this little thought, God, what do we do now? And so God had a thought. I don't want you to be orphans anymore. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to adopt you into my family. I'm going to give you everything that my son has. It'll be through his death and his resurrection that you will be no longer orphans. And I want a relationship with you if you know how to have that. That's why we've been doing Soul Detox for so long. This is the 4th week. I want you to understand what God's looking for from you when it comes to relationship. So I want you to get your outline out if you would. Because it's most important you understand this, that your body is going to go away. Okay, it is your soul that is going to live forever and ever. Amen. God designed it that way on purpose because he wanted a relationship with you. Listen very carefully. If you were first time, you haven't heard any of this. God was looking for a soulmate. Okay, it's just not that you do right and you be okay and you just get to go to heaven. He's actually looking for a soulmate, somebody that he can hang out with and somebody he can have a relationship with. That's what he's been looking for all along. We do a lot of things to take care of our body, but we never pay attention to our soul. And it is our soul that is going to last forever. And you got to be careful with that. There's things that damage our souls, and there's things that happen to us that steal life from us. This is why you're restless. This is why you're never happy. This is why you're never satisfied. Only God can restore your soul. Only God can give you peace that you're looking for, because you were made just for him and nothing else. Now, we try to find something else other than God that's going to make us happy, but it's not going to happen. This is what you have to understand. So keeping our soul in check, finding the things that's damaging our soul. We talked about the tortured soul last week. Things that bring us down, the heavy, the burdens, the things that we carry are not necessary to carry. When he says bring all your burdens to him, that's what he's talking about. Let him carry them. Your soul wasn't made to carry those things. It wasn't made to carry the heaviness that a lot of you feel. And a lot of that comes, we call it secondhand smoke. And what we're talking about there is that we live in a culture which we breathe secondhand smoke. And what that means, we do a lot of things that the culture does. We do a lot of things, our schedules, our lives, the things we think, where we go, how we do things is all based upon how the culture does it. And we get real confused. We don't know the difference between God's will and the culture will. We get real confused on those two. And so then we sort of kind of blend. This is what happens to most of you. We sort of blend the culture and we blend God, and we try to put those things together in our life, and we try to create some kind of happiness and some kind of peace. Let me say this. God, you don't need anything else but him. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to bring anything with you. God's big enough, and he wants you. He wants a relationship. So trying to add things in the relationship to make it better, you won't need to do that, but you do. And this is why you're not happy. This is why you're not content. So we realize that. Most of us still consider ourselves a sinner saved by grace. That is not how God looks at us. Let me tell you real quick. Once salvation takes place, you're God's first love, and you're God's last love. You are cherished above all things. He thinks of you every day. Do you think of him every day? He wants to be in your life every day. Will you let him in your life every day? I'm talking to Christians. We have so much secondhand smoke and secondhand religion that most of our life is spent trying to be good and just trying to make it through. Salvation for most of you is not a relationship with God, and it's just get to heaven. And by the way, salvation isn't the relationship. It just changes your destination. And so a lot of you live on the fact that I'm saved, I'm going to heaven, and never work on the relationship with God. God's wanting a relationship with you. You're his first love. He has made you children. You're heir to the throne. Your deed, your name is now on the deed in heaven. Whatever Jesus Christ has, you now own. That's how God sees you. Not a sinner, but a saint. He calls us the bride of Christ. You see, this is how he sees us. But we mix so many things. We think that in order for this relationship to work, we got to add something to it. Don't we? It's just hard to believe that God could just love us. And we do nothing but love back. Unconditional love from him. But we feel like we have to add those kind of things. There's nothing above us in his eyes. The journey for most of you is just make it to heaven. That's what salvation is. That's mostly what you think. Just, Lord, make it through and get me to heaven. Salvation is for the destination. The mission of Jesus Christ is so that you will tell others and others can find God like you did. That is the mission. That's what that is. It's called discipleship. And I'm speaking a foreign language to most of you, because most of you have not moved past salvation. And you wonder why things are not working out and why this Christian life is I'm not happy. The relationship is for God. So once we get past salvation and the mission, the relationship, you spending time with him, finding rest in him, restoring your soul is what the Bible says he will do. That's what he's looking for. But for some reason, we think we've got to add something to that. We got to bring something into our life that's going to make us more happy or as happy as God would make us. Because we don't believe that God alone can make us happy. Because we have been seduced. We have been tricked. We have been lied to. And here's the problem. You don't even know it. You live in secondhand smoke and secondhand religion, and you don't even know that you have been seduced, and you can't believe that you can't be happy. You can't figure it out because you said all along, I've got everything in my life I need. Why can't I be happy? Because you've been seduced. And so make sure you get your outline out, because I want to talk about it. Make sure you go to YouVersion, get all those things together. So we realize that we've been lied to. We live at the speed of the culture. God says to, be still, and we say run. God says to wait, you say now. How long are you going to wait for God to answer your prayer? 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day. That's how we are. And if you don't hurry up, you'll just make your own decision. Correct? That's how we live. We've been seduced. He tells us to wait. He tells us to reflect on his goodness, and we regret. And we scream. Why aren't things working out? Why can't I be happy? I have this, I have that, I want this, I want that, but I am not happy and I am not satisfied. Why? Because you're trying to bring other things into the relationship that's not necessary to be there for happiness. It happens to all of us, and we get seduced. We've got to take care of our soul. We talked about last week how the tortured soul, how Satan uses unconfessed sin in our lives, secret sins that many of you still have, that torture your soul over and over and steal life from you and rob life from you. Listen, Satan is not only after your body, he's after your soul. And the reason he wants you so bad is because God made you for him. And he hates it. So he's going to keep those secrets in there. He's going to keep those unconfessed sins. He's going to keep those lies whispered to you over and over. When you lay down out, you're no good, you'll never make it. God doesn't love you after what you have done. There's no way he could ever use you. Lie after lie after lie, and you believe it. He calls us sons and daughters. He cherished us above all things. You're his first and last love. Does that sound like somebody that can't make it? So you just don't know your relationship. It's because you have added other things. You have brought other things into the relationship, and you have been seduced. You have been lied to, and you don't even know it. Satan does a good job for all of us. Unforgiveness, for some of you, will rot your soul. It is not for them that you forgive. It is for you that you forgive. It will rot your soul. Tiger Woods had secrets. Remember we talked about this last week? Golf's not going to heal his soul. He's having a hard time this week. He's going to always have a hard time. Golf's not going to heal him. He's lied. He's been lied to. He's had everything he wants. He's got all the money in the world. He can have anything and everything, but he is not happy. It is the relationship with God that we were made for him, He created us for Him, and that is the only way you're going to ever find happiness and peace and joy in this world. And you have been seduced in believing other things. Now, do you love God above all things? We'll see. Because a lot of us have been lied to, and you're living it now, and you don't even know it. It's happening over and over as we do this. So let's think about this. Your soul is being seduced into using a substitute for God, for love and peace and joy. You're being seduced into a substitute. You wouldn't think of bringing an idol or anything above God into your life, but you do, and you don't know it, and you're not aware of it. So look at the verse with me. Exodus 23-4. Here we go. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall make yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the waters below. You should make no idol. You should not worship anything other than God. Does everybody understand that? You were created for Him and created for His worship. And you will say to me, I worship no one but God. I think not. I think you've been lied to. I think you've been tricked. I think you've been seduced. Our soul, if our soul is consumed with anything other than God, will never be satisfied. Does everybody understand that? If we're consumed with anything else other than God, you will not be happy. You'll never be satisfied. Another car, another house, another wife will not do. I'm telling you. It will not do. But you don't completely believe that. Is that a fair statement in this room? Because you're not sure exactly what's happening to your soul because you've been seduced. We live off secondhand smoke, and we mix the gospel in there, and we throw some Jesus in there and read a Bible and throw a quick prayer in there, and we will know what happened. Deuteronomy 4:16-19. So do not corrupt yourselves and make an idol in any form. An idol in any form, whether it be a man or a woman, an animal on the ground, a bird in the sky, a small animal that scurries along the ground, or a fish in the deepest sea. And when you look up into the sky and see the sun, the moon, the stars, all the forces of heaven, don't be seduced in worshiping them. You don't worship a tree, do you? Anybody worship a tree? You know, other cultures worship a tree, but we're smarter than that. We wouldn't worship a tree. Would you worship a bird? How about a star with your name on it? Anybody named a star yet? You get that. He said, you know, we were thinking, we're so much smarter than that, yet we have been seduced. There are idols in your life, and there's things that are before God that you're not paying attention to. And you wonder why your soul feels like there's pieces of you missing. You wonder why there's pieces missing. You've been seduced. And this is what Satan does for you. He attracts you. He pulls you in. He gives you a counterfeit. He gives you artificial bait, and you take it. You think if I do that rather than what God said, listen, this is not black and white for you. But if I have this, that'll make me happy. I mean, God keeps telling you all you need is me. But you keep substituting things, and you get lured into this. You get brought into this artificial bait. You're attracted, and you take it. You try to substitute God's love with something else. You try to substitute your soul, and you got to be careful. Would you ever substitute your soul and God's love for anything on this earth? Is it possible that we could love an object or a thing above anything on this earth? Oh, yes, very possible. Very possible. Mark 8:36. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world yet forfeit his soul? I'm talking to Christians. I'm not talking about dying and going to hell right now. I'm talking about you're going to heaven, you got that settled. But I'm saying, is it possible that we would forfeit our soul for something on this earth? Would we have an object or a thing that would be above God? Would we sacrifice our family, friends, or God for a thing or an object? And you'd say, no way. Yes, you do. Guys, you live in America. Is everybody, take a breather real quick? You live in America. We sacrifice our families every day. Do we not? We sacrifice time with God. I asked you to spend 5 minutes with God, and you told me that was the hardest thing you ever did. We sacrifice all the time. And we don't even know it. We've been tricked. We've been seduced. We settle for things other than what God wants us to settle for. We got to identify our idols. Let me read something to you. Psalms 24, 3 through 4. It's not on your outline. You'll have to write it down. I hope this is not going to be just another message for you. I want you to listen very carefully as we walk through this. I'm almost done. Here's what we got. Who may ascend to the hill of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart and who does not lift up his soul to an idol. You're thinking, I would not worship anything other than God. I would not sacrifice my family for anything. An object or a thing. I would not do that. But you do it every day. Because you've been lied to. You've been tricked. You've been fooled. How many of you would say, I've got everything I need in my life? A lot of you would say that. Why can't you sleep at night? Why can't you find rest? Why can't you find peace? What's the problem? You've been lied to. Is it possible that we could love an object or a thing over God, family, and friends? Is it possible? If I had an idol, if I had a bird sitting up here, you would say, and I said, worship the bird, you'd think I'm crazy. You said, they go worship the bird? What are you talking about, worship the bird? I would not worship the bird. Satan has created unnatural affections for you to love a substitute rather than God. He's created these things. He's created these scenarios. He's used our culture and our desires against us, and you believed it, and you've gotten seduced. What if I put a car here? Would you worship a car? What if I put a house here? Would you worship a house? You do. You've been lied to. You just don't know. Would we even think of doing such a thing? We sacrifice our families every day. I'm going to show you how we do it. I got you 3 things. The first one is time. Here's how we sacrifice. Here's your idols for you. Okay, you ready? Your idol, one of the things I hear all the time is, I don't have time. Do you have time for the things of God, or don't you have time for the things of God? If you can't give 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes a week to God, what's the problem here? Are you telling me you love God more than anything? There's nothing above him. Do you cherish him, but you can't give 5 minutes to God a week? You've been lied to. You spend more time on Facebook and you get more likes than God does. Think about it for a minute. All these things that we're doing, the Facebook, the texting, the tweeting, and all of whatever it is, the tweets. Listen, they got you. I'll say to you, can I have some help next Saturday? We want to do something. You know what you're going to do? You're going to tell me you don't have time. Who's got who? We're sacrificing our children for the sake of a house because we've got to work all the time. We're sacrificing people because we've got to pay for a car. Do we not? We don't have time. Don't kill the messenger. I love you. But that's what happens to us. I don't understand this Facebook thing. You go and the sun was setting tonight and it was beautiful. And I got 7 likes. You see, you're trying to justify your idols right now. You're trying to figure out, how can I do it all? I know you are. Well, that's not wrong. I can spend 5 minutes here. I'm not, listen, ever how you will juggle your idols, you juggle them. You go ahead, throw them up in the air, whatever. I'm just asking you a question. Who loves who? That's what God's asking. You're trying everything in the world to be happy, but you won't spend time with the one who created you. What is the deal? We don't have time for the things of God. We got too much soccer. Anything wrong with soccer? No. But you don't have 5 minutes for God. Listen, I know this to be true. This is the only time you sit down for 30 minutes and do nothing. True? And some use it to sleep. Especially the first service. They just wild. I don't know what's going on there. We have to put more something in that coffee. Fire them up. But that's what happens. How do you spend your time? Is time an idol for you? How many times do you say, I don't have time? You don't have time for the one who created you. It's an idol. If you don't have time for the things of God, it's an idol. If you spend more time on Facebook than reading God's Word and doing the things of God, idol. Anybody, any questions? Just don't kill me. I'm your messenger today. Okay? Just throwing it out there. Another idol real quick. Second thing that's the hardest thing to deal with is money. This is what God talked about more than anything else. God wants you to love Him more than any object or anything. Is it possible we could worship a house? Is it possible we could worship other things than God? A car, a boat, a hobby. Is it possible? Absolutely. Does it happen in this room? Every week. So you got to quit. You've been seduced and you've been lied to and you've been lured in. You say, I love my family. Watch this. How much time do you spend with them? You spend more time paying for the house and away from the house to pay for the house. But you say you love your family. But you spend no time with them. You've been lied to. You've been seduced. You know what you're doing? What everybody in America does. Y'all told me, and I'm listening very carefully, you told me that Faith's going to grow up quick. You better enjoy her. I took that to heart. I'm spending as much time as I can with her. We wrestled all day long yesterday. All day long. Even when I didn't want to. She's a sneak attack. She's a sneak attack. You'll be sitting there watching something, she'll fly in and jump on you. You got to watch her. Knees and everything coming in. You got to watch her. I'm telling you. But I'm just telling you, you've been lied to when it comes to relationships and when it comes to God. You think by doing everything that you do, spend all your time doing what everybody else is doing is going to make you happy. It's not. You think having a big house, listen, how big a house do you have to have? Is anything wrong with having a big house? I'm going to try to help you. You're juggling those idols around right now. How big a house do you need? What's big enough for your happiness? How many things do you have to have? How many cars do you have to drive? What do you have to have? Is it possible that we can buy season football tickets to our favorite team and never give a dime to God? Is it possible? I'm just your messenger. Woo! I'm your cheerleader. Is it possible? Every weekend. And you say you love God above all things, and that is a lie. You have been seduced. You have been tricked. And you thought this and this and this and that and that and that is going to make you happy, and you're not. Does God get His before you get yours? No. And you're wondering, what's the deal? God wants to be loved and cherished like you want to be loved and cherished. And He don't want anything in front of Him. Money is the biggest deal for Him because it's the biggest idol for you. You think the more you keep and the more you buy, and the happier you're going to be. How's that working for you? The more you give, the more you bless. It's the opposite. Listen, are we going to live out what God tells us to live, or are we just going to live by the culture? You just kind of mixing the two. And you're mad at me right now. You're mad. I can see it in your face. You want to hurt me. Don't hurt me. Listen, are you, listen to this. Are you more mad at me that you may lose your idols? Are you more upset that you may lose your soul? The love that God has for you and what He's looking to do in your life, you may be losing that because of your idols, but you're mad because I'm talking about your idols. How foolish is that? This could change your life if you knew what you were doing. You have to pay attention. Jesus looked at him in Mark 10:21. Jesus looked at him, Mark 10:21, and said, one thing you lack. Go and sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven, then come follow me. Does God want you to sell everything you have? No. Some of you, you might have to get to God. I don't know. I don't know what you love the most. The problem with this guy was money was his idol. He loved it more than anything else. And he had to go. I don't believe that you love your house more than your children. Okay, let's be honest with that, all right? I don't believe you love your football team more than your church. Okay, I might think about that one. That's pretty close, isn't it? We don't paint our faces in here. We should be doing that. You know what I'm saying? Marathon, little running man over there, little cheerleader section. Nice cheerleaders. Don't get excited. But you see what I mean, we got to think about this for a moment. You know, would we do such a thing? I'm not accusing you of doing it, but it's happening. Do you not understand that it's happening? We do love things more than than people and our family and even over God. That's how you live your life. 90% of you will come in here and never give anything to Marathon because you have an idol. Do you not? Just the messenger, still loving all of you. Your conversations, that's the third and last thing. Conversations, what do you talk about? Football, Prince Harry's on the radar right now. Poor guy. Lord have mercy. We can't even talk about that. Can't even talk about it. But that's what happens. What do we talk about? What's your conversations like? What's your conversations like? We've been seduced. We talk about things that aren't important. We tweet, I went outside. Is that not true? My grass needs cutting. Well, how about that? Everybody wanted to know that. It's very important. I'm just trying. Do you see, are y'all following me? It's just a little silly. We're not going to worship a bird because you think that's crazy. But you're going to tweet, I went outside? I'm just throwing it out there. This is what I'm saying. Do we really love God or not? Do we cherish Him or not? It seems like we don't. And because of our culture and where we live, we're just doing what everybody else is doing. You're going to have to do some things. One of the things that God tells us to do, you're going to have to tear some idols down. You're going to have to physically pull this thing into line. Listen, you go home and pray about it? No, you're not. Don't you go home and pray about it. You know what to do. Fix it. I'm going to read a verse to you. Judges 6:25. Judges 6:25. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Listen, what he's saying, this might not be your doing. It might have come from somewhere else. It might have come from your dad, and the thinking has been passed down. You have to be responsible and rip it out. Is everybody following me? You need to go home and see if you love your house more than your children. Find out how much time you spend away from it and paying for it. I mean, you really need to think these things through. Can you have it all? We're sure. Does that feel better? I'm finally going to do something. If God gets His, you'll get yours. And you'll be able to sleep at night. But if you keep His, you're in big trouble. You're never going to have peace. And it has nothing to do with houses, lands, cars, or money. That has to do with you. He's just looking for your love. He just wants to be cherished above all things. When we get to heaven and all this is over, you're going to find out what we missed. You're going to find out. He just wants to know. You're going to have to physically remove it and take it down. It's no other way. You got to change the way you live. You got to change. You got to think about how this is working out. If I tell you I don't have time for the things of God, then there's something wrong. Would that not be? Is that not a clue? Is that a good clue? If I say to you that I can't give 10% of my income to the church because God asked me to do something like that, I can't do that. there's something wrong with that. Is that not a clue that something else has gotten in your way? Is that not a clue? A man finds a fish on the beach. He looks at the fish, and the fish doesn't look very happy laying on the beach, so he picks the fish up. He says, I'm going to make this fish happy. I'm going to take this fish, and I'm going to buy this fish a house. And so I bought the fish a house, and the fish still wasn't happy. So I decided to buy a fish car. So I bought this fish a fish car, and he still wasn't happy. So I decided to give him several credit cards and a lot of money, so this fish could go buy anything he wanted, but the fish still wasn't happy. So he bought the fish a Corona and a Playfish magazine. So the fish started drinking beer and looking at naked fish. And the fish still wasn't happy. So he picked up the fish and took it back to the beach. And he put the fish in the ocean. And the fish was happy. You know why the fish was happy? Because the fish wasn't made for the beach. Fish was made for the ocean. We were made for God. You try to put anything else in there, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be happy. You've been lied to. You've been seduced. You're going to have to physically decide what you're going to do with this. This could change your world, or you can walk out of here and get some coffee and figure out what you want to do, or do nothing with it. But I will tell you this, you'll be a fish out of water until you get this thing straight. You will. Okay, stand with me. I'm hoping that the only thing you remember is the fish joke. That's probably what's going to happen. But you need to really think about that. We were made for Him, guys. We were made for Him. Chase is going to sing a song that I love. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His face. It talks about the things of this world will grow strangely dim. Have you been lied to? Have you been seduced into something that really you don't really want? You need to look at it. So let's bow our heads.